What's up? We are here with none other than the local legend, Keith Knight. What's up, my dude?
What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. I've been wanting to do this for quite some time.
Yeah, I'm glad to come down here and check this place out. It's a cool spot you got here.
Thank you, man. We've been working on it for a little while. It's coming together, and I appreciate you being kind of our guinea pig because we got a lot of stuff to iron out, but we got some brews. You know, we're chilling. Got some beers.
I'm ready.
And we're here to have a good time. So Keith and I really haven't known each other for super long. And as a matter of fact, during most of your moto career, we didn't even really know each other.
No, met at a bicycle race.
At a silly spandex bicycle race.
Yep.
Yeah. So I've known of Keith, though, for quite some time, just in the NorCal moto scene. He's a bit of a, like I said, legend. Dude can just...
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Dude, you can shred on a bike. Absolutely shred. So, I mean, I've seen you enough times to know that you've just blown my doors off and pretty much everybody at the track. So I got to say, you got the speed. You got the speed without a doubt. But, you know, the reason I wanted to have you on here was just kind of to dig into like what it really looks like when you enter the pro ranks, going from like racing amateur races, going to, did you ever go to Loretta's?
Never went to Loretta's.
Never went to Loretta's, but you went to some of the bigger amateur races and raced with a bunch of those guys. So
Texas, World Minis, did all that stuff.
Yeah. So I haven't entered that type of realm, but I'm sure you have quite a bit of input on like what that leap is like, or like competing with those guys on that lower level versus going to that next step where you're rubbing elbows with the top dudes on the factory bike. So, you know, I kind of want to get into that stuff, but first I just kind of wanted to get some more info. You know, weirdly enough, my dad knows of your dad, and I don't know if they're like buddies or not, but I know that your dad's kind of a little bit of an icon himself in the moto world, right? He did quite a bit of moto racing himself.
He did. 70s, he raced local pro.
Okay.
And yeah, he did a bunch of the local stuff around here. And you know, he quit racing pretty early on, but yeah, he was a big cross-up guy, big wheelie guy, and
big wheelies.
That's about all I know. He's got some cool photos though. He's got a couple hanging up in the garage. Rancho Cordova Suzuki jersey, big cross-up, and
nice. Nice. Cool. But yeah, I just had to mention that because my dad has mentioned his name a few times just because, you know, since we've become more friends, he's like, oh yeah, no, I know about his dad and blah, blah, blah. So I'm sure he's watched your dad race sometime in the past.
That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. So I assume you learned a lot of your technique and stuff from your dad, or did you have like coaches or anything like that? Or I mean, how did you get to become such a ripper?
You know, I've never had a riding coach my whole life. Never have. My dad pretty much taught me everything I knew. Yeah, it was all him, pretty much. Me and myself, you know, just watching videos of the pros over and over and over. So I was kind of self-trained, to be honest. And that's pretty much it. Just, yeah, never had a riding coach. There was a couple guys that I always wanted to work with. It never worked out. Rusty Holland was actually one of them.
Yeah.
I wanted to work with him for a long time. I never got the opportunity.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I know that a lot of those top tier guys have, you know, some sort of training program and they've got someone to lean on, but you know, it sounds like you had, you know, just more local mentors and stuff like that. But yeah, cool nonetheless. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of see how that played into, you know, how you got to be so fast. But I think we've also talked about this. You really strive to you love the training aspect, right? You love just like the grind and like the putting in laps and like working on technique and working on just the little weird minutia to make yourself faster, right?
I love that aspect of it. That was my favorite part about racing, honestly. And maybe it was a downfall. I don't know. Maybe I should have rode more, trained less, but I love the grind, love everything about racing, working out, putting in motos on the practice days. I love that part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you can make that the thing that you get the most excited about in moto, I think it's definitely key because it's such a grind. It seems like, I mean, at least the stuff I see from the pros, like you can get burnt out pretty quick. I mean, especially after a long career, you know, there's some dudes that have been in the sport for such a crazy amount of time. And to do that like year after year after year has just got to be such a grind.
Absolutely.
So, Um, and then I guess let's kind of jump into that point that I was saying. So, I mean, you're racing a bunch of amateur stuff. You're doing local racing. I mean, at what point did you decide to make that leap to being a pro? Was there like something that, you just had reached the point to where you were done with doing local races, or you were just like really excelling at that and you decided let's have a go at the pros? Or, I mean, how did that work out?
Yeah, so I turned locally, I turned pro in 2009, and then I was able to get my pro points pretty quickly. So I got my pro license, raced my first pro race in 2010, and yeah, that was it. I started cleaning up in the intermediate class around here, and as me and my dad both talked and said, let's try to do the pro thing and see what we can do with it.
Yeah.
And that's all she wrote from there.
So you decide to take that leap. I mean, I'm so oblivious. I don't even know what that next step is. When you go from the amateurs, you want to race pro. I mean, what's that process? Like, are you just like you just register to become pro, or like, is there any sort of qualification? I mean, what's that whole?
Yeah, so it's funny, like bicycle racing, you have to get a certain amount of points in each category to move up to the next category.
Mm-hmm.
Motocross, locally, you could never ride a dirt bike before and sign up in the pro class. So it's kind of funny how that works. But to race AMA Pro, Supercross, outdoors, you have to get a certain amount of points at these amateur races across the country.
Mm-hmm.
I think back when I did it was like 85 points you had to get. And once you acquired those points, you could get your pro license and then sign up for the outdoor series.
Yeah. Wild. It's kind of crazy how it's just like, well, just have a go at it and we'll see how you do.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, so maybe I will get my pro license. Who knows, man?
Let's do it.
I've done some beginner races, some like novice stuff, so I should be fine. I'll just like go for it.
You're good. Let's run it.
Throw me on a factory bike, man. We'll just hold it.
We'll see what we can do.
When you first get in, like I'd imagine that experience when you are racing amateurs to lining up with the pros, it's just got to be like insanity. I mean, as far as like the competitiveness and the, whether it's the training that they've done or it's the bikes they're riding, or, how overwhelming is that? Like right when you jump into that?
It is, I was so young. I was kind of oblivious to it all. I remember my first pro race, they have the porta potties and staging, and I went up to go to the bathroom on the line of the 450 moto. Out from the porta potty comes James Stewart, and at that point, it's like, whoa, like we're here, we're doing this right now. So, no,
wow.
it's nuts for sure. It's like, do I belong here? I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean that first gate drop. I mean, what was the first pro race you did?
So first one I did was Washougal 2010. I didn't qualify for that one. A couple of weeks later, we went down to the last round at Paula, and I did qualify for that one. Went right into the show, and I can't even remember. I think I went 32, 35 in the motos, but I was just so happy to qualify. That was pretty much the goal, really. Just qualify, get it into the show, and see what we could do from that point.
I mean, I've listened to quite a few podcasts with a lot of guys that are kind of in the same position that you were in. And the big thing that they say is just like the level of skill that you need just to qualify into the main is so wild. I mean, when you're sitting at home, like I do this all the time, when you're watching like LCQ, you're watching whatever, you're just kind of like, oh, well, these guys are clearly... It's so hard to put into perspective exactly how difficult that is to get to that point, and on TV, they may look like they're like squirrels or squids or what. That's not the case.
No.
Like
No.
if you put that dude out on the track at your local track or whatever, he's going to just blow the doors off everybody.
The guy in 40th place at your outdoor national is, the fastest guy at your local race by a mile. It's just incredible.
Yeah. I watch this stuff sometimes, and like I'll be with someone who doesn't ride moto, and they're just kind of like saying, oh, well, these guys are fun to watch. Like they might be crashing or whatever. And I'm like, that guy right there, even the dude who's in dead last, like could probably just smoke you. Like if you watch him out the track, he'd be flawless. He'd probably be just like on rails the whole time. But the thing that's hard to get across is like the track conditions are just insane. I mean, the ruts are usually bigger than anything you've ever seen. the speed, it's just
That's the thing, you can't train for those conditions. No matter what you do, you just can't train for it. You don't get a track like that at your local practice track. It doesn't happen.
doesn't exist.
I remember Paula 2010. That was my first one I was telling you about, and I mean they weren't even ruts. They were trenches. It was incredible.
It's just like that where the pegs are just like they can grab and you're just stuck in it. I don't even know how the bike
even
gets through that.
The lines, they form so much different than your local practice or race. They're way different. You don't have all you have on that track that day is pro riders. You don't have your 50s, 60s, 80s. The lines just form completely different. And unless you're out there doing it every weekend, it's hard to get used to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's like you said, how do you emulate that? How do you replicate that? It's just it's not something you can duplicate, but yeah, I don't envy that. I even some of those tracks, I mean, there's so many things where it's like people are, oh yeah, I wish I could go pro or do this or that. I'm like, man, the realities of it is just like you either got that in your DNA and you want to pursue that and you just like love that gnarly stuff or you don't. Dude, I need a pampered moto experience. You know what I mean? Like I'm that guy that goes out to the sand, like to E Street here locally in NorCal. And I'm just like, yeah, give me in the deep sand. It's like nice and consistent and there's no hard lines. You get me into something that's just got like deep ruts or like ruts up the face or something. And I'm just like, well, it looks like I've never ridden in my whole life.
It happens.
Yeah, I got to give you props on that, man.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff scares me so much, but I mean, I guess when you've ridden, I mean, what age did you start racing? I mean, what's that whole story? Like when did you get your first bike?
I was probably 4 or 5 years old. I started just like pretty much everyone else around here. I started racing at Sac Raceway every single Friday night doing that. And gosh, my dad was taking me to the races pretty much every weekend. AMP, GFI, E Street, Riverfront, Argyle, you name it. So pretty much every weekend we were out there racing, just doing it. And I started out on a PW50 and just worked my way up through the ranks.
Nice. And then, I mean, were there any favorites? I mean, as far as anybody who's closer to the NorCal area, like what were your favorite kind of events or races or series that went along that went on here in Northern California?
I always loved racing at Oatfield down in Turlock. That was any race there. I made sure to hit it. That's my favorite track.
You just turned on. You were just like, let's go.
I love it. That's the dirt there is unbelievable. And but no, pretty much they used to have the Verb Classics around here. I think they started in 2012 and they went through probably 2016. I think that was the last one they had, but they had those at Oatfield every year. That was always a fun race. Dodge National out at Hangtown. That was another fun one that I looked forward to.
That was a big one.
But no, I love racing locally. I loved it. I think that's one of the things that helped me get to the point where I was just racing every weekend. We were on that gate damn near every weekend racing, and you can't replicate that race pace out on the practice track.
No, it's a different energy. It's a completely different beast altogether. When you slap the race title on it, it just changes everybody. It changes the way they ride. It changes the way that it's a whole different ball game for sure. Yeah, we were just out actually at Oatfield, just promoting Moto Delivered out there, and it was just, I haven't raced out there in a few years, but gosh, that track is it's so sick. I love that.
I love
track.
it. You drive over the hill coming in, look over to the right.
Mm-hmm. You're out there in those fields, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen before.
I love it.
It's totally wild. But
I haven't been there in a couple of years, but I would love to go check it out.
Pretty similar, but they did get